Hello, my name's Mark, and this was normally a video game channel, but I think it's going to be just become kind of a like a personal vlog for me. But to start that out, I wanted to talk about my colonoscopy yesterday. Don't worry, I won't show you any pictures. But let's talk about anesthesia and sedation. I did my colonoscopy without any sedation at all. I was completely awake. There was no general anesthesia. There was no conscious sedation. There was no epidural or pills or anything like that. I was just awake. And I'm an American, and I live in Ohio. And in the United States, I don't know for sure about Canada, but I know in the United States, unlike apparently most, if not all, of the rest of the world, people generally have some kind of sedation before a colonoscopy, and I did not want that. I have not had good experiences with general anesthesia. I don't want any of the drugs that they use for conscious sedation, which is like propofol and Versed and stuff. I don't want any of that in my brain. So I wanted to do this without any drugs or any sedation. And everybody thought I was nuts. Not just my friends, but physicians I talked to, nurses, staff, are like, what? No sedation? You can do this. You might have a little trouble finding a doctor that is okay with that. That was the challenge I ran into. Again, it's done without sedation, especially in Europe. It's very common. So it's not, it's not like it's some crazy thing. It's just not what we normally do here in the United States. Also, I think part of the issue at first was a friend had a colonoscopy a couple of years ago. He's in the medical field, and he recommended a general surgeon. That's who did his, and he's evidently just an excellent surgeon. But he was not comfortable doing this with me awake. That was my first stop, and I don't entirely blame him. There's no hard feelings. That kind of surgeon is not used to performing procedures on people that are awake. And I think, as my primary care once explained it to me, it takes a certain personality type to be able to cut into a live person. And it's an even more rare personality type to be able to cut into a live person that is awake. So I kind of get it. A couple others came recommended to me, also general surgeons, and yeah, they wanted nothing to do with me being awake at all. So I ended up with a gastroenterologist, and if you're wondering why I didn't go there in the first place, a general surgeon is perfectly qualified to do endoscopy or colonoscopy, something like that, and if they find polyps, they cut them out. It's a very basic thing, so they're completely qualified and have the skill set to do that. But I ended up with a gastroenterologist who also didn't want to do that, but recommended another doctor. This doctor's out on leave, so his staff recommended yet another doctor. I mean, it was there were several appointments, unfortunately. Anyway, so I finally land with this doctor, and I just straight up, I was okay. Well, this is what I want. This is what I whatever. And I just happened to have a doctor who's originally from Germany, I believe, if I remember right. And he's okay. And he told me what I already knew. He's like, where I come from originally, in Europe, we do this all the time. He's like, I don't blame you. It's just, you have to find a driver. So, your spouse or your friend or somebody has to take a day off work, and it screws up half your day. And it's a 15-20 minute procedure, and you can walk out, and that makes life much easier. And I mean, he didn't share my concern of drugs, but he did also comment. He's like, well, if you're going to have complications, it's probably going to be because of the anesthesia. So, why take the extra risk? I was, of course, concerned because I read multiple things on the internet. A couple people said this is no big deal. Obviously, it's very commonly done outside the United States. Sorry about the background noise. It's storming here right now. But there were some people online that just made comments like it was the most horrendous, painful thing they'd ever experienced. And I don't I didn't know what to make of that, but and when I spoke with the doctor before the procedure, I was just like, okay, well, we'll try it, and look, if it's terribly painful and you can't handle it, then I'll stop and we'll reschedule it for a time with sedation. So I mean, I'm very thankful I found a guy that was willing to roll with me on this, because I get it's not commonly done, but it can be done. So if you have any hesitation about doing your colonoscopy because of concerns about anesthesia or just sedation in general or drugs or whatever, it can be done. It might take you a minute to find the right guy, but it can totally be done. Now, how painful was it? Oh, the kitty cat's joining me. How painful was it? Not very. Certainly when they put something in your rectum, you feel that for a second. But once it's up inside you, not too much. He did warn me. Would you quit hitting the camera? Come on, buddy. Thank you. He did warn me that there's a couple places where the scope makes a turn, and that's probably where I'd feel it. Also, they shoot some water and some air in you to expand your colon. That way they can see everything with the camera and the little light and all that. So that you feel. So what I did not expect, and it wasn't horrendous. There were a couple moments, and it just felt like you had some gas. Like it was just like gas. I mean, it was like maybe a 20-minute procedure, and parts where I was uncomfortable, it might have been a minute or two. It wasn't a big deal. And it wasn't horrendous, but there certainly was like there was a moment of that. And one thing to be prepared for, and I guess this is normal whether people are awake or asleep or whatever, but you are going to fart. I mean, they're shooting a bunch of air. It's not, it's like fresh air, so it's not like a big stinky fart, but yeah, you are, and don't try to hold that in, otherwise it is going to hurt a little more. So yeah, just let it go. They're used to it. It is what it is. I mean, medicine is not always polite and pretty. So the only part that was a little tricky for me, and this is a marked problem, I have a abdominal hernia, and where that is almost within the last couple inches of my colon, I guess. And you're laying on your side typically when they do this, and that hernia, it made it a little more windy and just not what he was used to seeing. I think maybe just the hernia things were just shifted around a little bit differently or something because of that. So he had me turn on my back, which was fine. I could have done the whole thing on my back maybe, I don't know, but I was fine. And then he had the assistant or the nurse or whoever was there in the room with him push down on the hernia part, and then he could continue. That was uncomfortable for a few moments. Wasn't a big deal. It passed. And that's a situation that was unique to me because of the hernia. So just heads up. And he was aware I had the hernia before the procedure and everything. And I'm not, we didn't know how much of a role that would or wouldn't play, but not a big one, but it was an issue, and that's specific to me, probably not you. So yeah, honestly, guys, it wasn't that big a deal. If you're comfortable with drugs and you don't mind burdening yourself on people to take a day off work to give you a ride, or bugging your spouse or loved one or whatever, fine. I'm not. I personally have not had great luck with some anesthesia, and I've had family members that haven't had good luck with anesthesia, and it's just, you can accuse me of being a control freak or whatever, but I want to be awake for procedures as much as possible. I would like to get that hernia fixed. That requires me to lose a little weight. That's a surgery I desperately want to be awake for, and I think I'm going to have a very hard time finding a surgeon that's okay with that. And if I can't find one, I can't find one, and I just don't get it fixed. It's not blocking anything, but I would like to get it fixed, but I won't go to sleep for that. And there's some exceptions. There are some things I would rather be asleep for. When they do eye surgery, you're generally awake. Can't imagine being awake for eye surgery. I commented about my colonoscopy on Facebook, and mentioned, yeah, that's right, I did it without any anesthesia, whatever. And he said, well, good for you and your colonoscopy, but you don't know what pain is till you've had to have your bladder scoped. and you've been awake for that. So if you're a guy, you can imagine where they go in for that. So yeah, that might be something I'd rather be out for, but I don't want to remember that. But no, the colonoscopy thing though, it truly was not that big a deal. The feedback I got from people, all of the nurse that admitted me and took my information, and then the assistant in the room, they were all very surprised I wanted to stay awake. And they're like, well, did you talk to the doctor about this? I'm like, yeah, we talked last month. So it's not something they see regularly. The nurse that I saw at the desk before I was discharged, she's like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. I don't know why everybody makes such a big deal about it. So, and I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't in there screaming or anything, right? She's like, no, you were very, but she's like, you'd be surprised. Some people swear it's the most awful thing in the world. And what my primary care mentioned and what the gastroenterologist mentioned, some of us are a little more twisty and turny inside than others. And that maybe makes a difference. Some of us are also just big wimps. While I'm not a big wimp about this, I certainly have my things I could be a big wimp about. I don't, like I mentioned eyes earlier, I have a cornea issue, and I can't imagine ever getting a shot in my eye or anything like that. That sounds horrendous. So, we all have our things, but, if this is a thing where, hey, you just don't have a ride, or, you don't want to screw up your whole day, because they also tell you, hey, you're supposed to have somebody with you for the next 24 hours, and don't drive for 24 hours, and don't make any big decisions and stuff. And it's, well, I didn't necessarily have that going on that day. I didn't want to be sidelined from work or anything for an entire day. And then lastly, after the procedure, just as a heads up, I felt extremely bloated, like uncomfortably so. Like to bend over to put my shoes on was uncomfortable. The reason for that is, again, they shot a bunch of air up into me. So, I was very gassy. I did ask the discharge nurse, I was like, hey, I feel really bloated right now. Is that normal? And she's like, yeah. She's like, look, when you get in the car, just fart. It'll feel better. She's like, please wait till you get in the car, though, or to wait till you get outside. So, but, and afterwards, I hadn't eaten in a while, obviously, so I drove to get breakfast. That was about 15, 20 minutes away, and there was gas the whole time on the way to it was gone by the time I got to the restaurant, but, and it wasn't like smelly or anything, because it was all like fresh air and they had to shut up there, but, it is what it is. We all do that. So, yeah, that's, I can't think of anything else. Would I do it again? Yeah. This truly proved not to be that big a deal, and maybe it sounds really uncomfortable, and maybe for some people it is, depending what you got going on, and if you're comfortable with drugs and have somebody around to give you a ride and stuff, then no big deal. But if you're thinking about not doing it, even if it's just a matter of like, hey, I want to get back to work and go about my life and stuff, I don't want to take a full day off work or whatever, yeah, you can do this. The whole procedure took 15, 20 minutes. He did mention he was going a little slower because I was awake, because I guess maybe normally he'd just jam it up there. But he did mention he was going a little slower, so it maybe took a little longer than if I was asleep. But yeah, I tops, it was 20 minutes. So, and it just wasn't that big a deal. So I haven't seen a whole lot of videos about this on YouTube. That's why I made that. If anybody else was thinking about it, there you go. That's my feedback on it. Hopefully, definitely do your colonoscopy, whether you're awake or asleep. The colon cancer is serious shit. So that's, there you go. That's my 2 cents. Not a big deal. I'd do it again. So hopefully that helps somebody out.